Hello, so today we're going to talk about linear inequality. So what is linear inequality? So in the previous video, we talked about how to solve a inequality with one variable. So linear inequality basically is you're trying to solve the inequality by graphing. So here is an example. If I want you to solve y less than 2x plus 1, how would you do it? So here is the step. Step 1, you're trying to convert the inequality into the equal sign. Like the less or equal to, you convert it into the equal sign. And then step 2, you're trying to write it in y equals to ax plus b in this form. Step 3, you're going to graph the linear function, which is y equals to ax plus b. But be careful in here. If this is a less or greater than sign, which is these two signs, you're going to use a dashed line because it's not including, right? If the sign is greater than or equal with the equal sign or less than or equal, you're going to use a solid line to graph it. I'm going to show you later. Okay. Step 4, to pick a test point on either region and see which one satisfy the less or greater than condition. I'm going to show you how to do it for number 4 later. So now let's start in with our step 1, convert it into the equal sign. So when I convert it, I would write this as y equals to 2x plus 1. And then I'm going to graph this linear equation. So how to graph it? We pick some points, such as I can pick x equals to 0, y is going to equal to 1, because that's the y-intercept. And then the second point I would pick is 1. When x equals to 1, y equals to 2 times 1 plus 1, which is 3. Okay, now I have a 2 point. Let me draw the graph. So I have 0, 1 here, 1, 2, 3. So the second point would be here. So now I have 2 points. So normally we just connect these two together to have a line. But be careful, we have what? I talked about that when we graph it. If this is less than or greater than, there's no equal sign, we need to use a dashed line because it's not including. If it's including, we use a solid line. Okay, so we want to use a dashed line instead of a solid line. Like that. Okay, so what does that mean, pick a test point? Okay, do you notice that these dashed lines separate, like split the coordinate plane into two parts, the left part and the right part? So I'm going to use a yellow color to tell you, hey, this is the left part, and then the right part is red. Okay, pick a test point is you can pick a point in either of this region. So let's say I'm going to pick to 0, which is, this is my test point in the red area. And then I substitute x equals to 2, y equals to 0 into the inequality function. Okay. So I have 0 less than 2 times 2 plus 1, which is 0 less than 5, right? Is that a true statement? Yes, this is a true statement because 0 is less than 5. So that means the red would be the shady area that we're looking for. Oops. Because the shady area containing our testing point, which is a true statement. So what if I choose another testing point? I'm going to use a blue pen to do it. If I choose a point on, I already remove it. Let's say I choose the point in here. They can be random point. As long as it's not on the dashed line, it's fine. So I choose the point 0 and 3. So that means I want to substitute 0 and 3 into our inequality, y less than 2x plus 1. So I have 3 less than 2 times 0 plus 1, which is 3 less than 1. This is not a true statement, right? This is a false statement. So that means we cannot choose the shady area containing the point 0 and 3. So if we cannot choose that area, the yellow area, that means we need to choose the red area. So that means no matter which test point you choose, it's okay. As long as you know that, hey, if it's true statement, that means we are choosing the shady area containing the point to 0. That's it. Or you can say, hey, I'm choosing the red shady area, or you just label it. Okay, let me try to give you another example. And please try to pause the video and do it by yourself. Okay, I assume you come back and you did it by yourself, and let's see how we do it in this one. The first step is what? We will write the inequality become an equal sign. So I have x equals to 2y plus 4. And then second step is we want this to inform, we want to write this in a form of y equals to ax plus b. So that means we want y on one side and then the other elements on the right side. Okay, so I have what? Negative 2y equals to 4 minus x, and then divided by 2 on both sides. I have y equals to 1/2 x minus 2. So this is our linear equation. And now we want to graph it by picking some points. So the first one is I will pick 0 and negative 2 because this is our y-intercept. The second point I pick is you could pick something 2, x equals to 2, because 1/2 times 2 will give you a whole number. Or you can pick 4, because 1/2 times 4 gives you a whole number. So I have 0. Okay, so now we can graph it. S and y. I have all right, so the first point I have is 0 and negative 2. Oh, in here. So it's this one. The second point is 4, 0. So since in here, this is what? A greater than and equal to. There's an equal sign, so that means our 9 is going to be solid. Will be this 9. So after we draw this line, we have two areas, right? So one is on the top, upper top left, and the other one is lower right. So either one of these, you need to pick a random point in this area. You just need to pick one and do test if they satisfy the inequality. So in order to do an easy calculation, I pick 0, 0. This is going to be my test point. Okay, so I plug in, substitute 0, 0 into x greater than or equals to 2y plus 4. So 0 greater than or equals to 2 times 0 plus 4, 0 greater than 4. Is that true? No, this is a false statement, right? So if this is a false statement, that means we cannot choose the shaded area containing our test point 0, 0. So that means our solution is going to be the other side, the lower right. So this is our solution. Okay, so let me show you an example. How can we apply this to our real world? So here's our example. A store sells peanuts for $4 pounds and cashew for $8 pounds. And plan to sell a new mixed nut blend in the jar. What combination of the peanut and cashew are possible if they want the mixed cost is $6 or less? So how do we set up this? So in the jar, you have two types of nuts, which is peanuts sells $4 a pound, and then cashew sold for $8 per pound. So we want to mix them together. So the cost should be what? Let's say we don't know. We have, let's put S pound of peanuts into the jar and Y pounds of cashew. Cashews, not cashew, sorry. Cashews in the jar. In the jar, not in the jar. All right, so what would be the total cost in the jar? So since the peanuts are $5 per pound, so the total cost of the peanut would be 4 times X plus the cost of the cashews, which is A times Y. And we want them is going to be less than or equal to 6. So this is the inequality that we have here. So how do we solve it? Well, by graphing it, right? So when we graph it, the first step is we want to write it as an equal sign. And then we write it into the form y equals to ax plus b. So let's subtract 4x on both sides. I have 6 minus 4x and divided by 8. So y equals to negative 4x over 8 plus 6 over 8. In order to make it easy to calculate, I'm going to simplify it. So this is equal to negative 1/2 x plus 3/4. All right, so what's next? Next is we want to graph it. So in here, we can choose what? When x equals to 0, y equals to 3/4. That's our first point. And the second point is, again, I will choose 2. If x equals to 2, so I have negative 1/2 plus 3/4. So this is equal to negative 1/4. Okay. Now let's graph it. S. Remember, S is the weight in peanuts, and then Y is the cashews. I have, let's say, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay, so I have 0, 3/4, which is here, and then 2, -1/4, so it will be here. So the graph is going to look like this one. Okay, so first of all, this is a real world problem. Remember that this is a real world problem. So in common sense, for common sense, does it make sense we put negative pounds of cashews and negative pounds of peanuts in the jar? No, right? So that means when we're choosing the range, we need to be careful. It should be from 0 to, everything has to be positive. So the graph should look like this one. We erase everything that below 0. So now we just have this. So the plan only have the positive, which is the first quadrant, because we can have a negative pounds of cashew and negative pounds of peanuts. And okay, so again, they have 2 parts. You can either pick any points to substitute and to test out which one is the shady area. So I can pick maybe this one. You try to pick something that a little bit further away from the graph, because this graph we don't draw it on a computer. So that means maybe you don't draw it quite clear, right? So in here, if I put this point, you don't know is this, hey, 1/2. This point is unclear. Is it 1/2 or 1/3? So the better way to do it is pick something that a little bit far off. You know that, hey, 2 is definitely not on the line, because you don't want to pick anything on the line. Okay, so my test point is 0 and 2. The other test point you can do is 0, 0, because it's easier to calculate. So either one, or you can either put here a test point which is 10, 0. Either one. Anything that easier for you to calculate. I'm going to put 0, 0. So if I use this as my test point, so I have what? 4 times 0 plus 8 times 0 less than or equal to 6. And we have 0 less than or equal to 6. So this is a true statement. In that case, we're going to choose the shady area that containing the point 0, 0, which means it's going to be this one. This is the area. So how do we explain it? Because this is real world problem, we're trying to explain this one. So that means if you pick a random point in here, that will satisfy that the combination of the cashew and the peanuts is going to be less than $6. For example, in this point, this is 1/2 and 0, right? 0 and 1/2 for this point on the line. So that means what? If you put 0 pounds of peanuts and 1/2 pounds of cashew, the total cost of the jar is going to be less than 6. Or any point in here, let's say this is 1/2 and maybe 1/4. No, 1/4, 1/2. I write that wrong. So if this is another point, it's 1/4 and 1/2. That means 1/4 represent the weight of peanut. If you put 1/4 pounds of peanuts and 1/2 pounds of cashews, so the total cost of the jar is still less than $6. What's that mean? Okay. So after that, I would like to introduce you the system of linear inequality. So it's really similar to inequality, but now you will have two inequality equation. So if I have y less than or equals to x plus 2, and then y greater than 1 minus 1. So the way to do it is the same. The first step is you're trying to, okay, I'm going to use different colors pen. Let's use a blue one, represent two different equations. Okay, so how do we solve that? So for the first one, I need to draw the graph. So for the first one, I write this into y equals to x plus 2 first, and pick 2 points, 0 and 2, 1 and 3. So I will have 0, 2 in here, 1, 3 in here. So I connect these two together. So since this has a equal sign, so we're going to use what? A solid 9 to connect these two. Okay, let me extend this a little bit. Okay, so for the second line, I'm going to use a blue pen. So I have what? Y equals to 1 minus x, right? And then pick in 2 points. So I have 0 and then 1. And another one is, let's pick x equals to 1, y equals to 0. So I have 0, 1, and here. Oops. Let me use a rulers, help me. Okay, so after we draw this, again, you're seeing this is complicated, right? So now, let's find the shady area for the black. So again, I need to find a test point. When we're looking at the black, I will find a test point maybe 3, 0 as my test point. So I substitute 3, x equals to 3, y equals to 0 into the function. And then I have 0 less than 3 plus 2. So I have what? 0 less than or equals to 5, which means this is shady area for the black. In here, because that's the area that containing that point. Okay, so now we need to find a test point for the blue line. Any point I can do, maybe negative 2, 0 as my test point for the blue line. So I substitute x equals to negative 2, y equals to 0. So be careful, here is 1 minus negative 2. So I have x greater than what? 3. So this is false, right? This is a false statement. So that means we cannot choose the area containing this point. So that means should be in here. So now, which one are the overlap area? So the overlap area, the two shady area, the part that they overlap, is going to be our solution. So which part they overlap? I'm going to use a red one to draw it. It's going to be in this area, right? Since this line to here and here, everything above it, so would be this one. So this is going to be our solution. So what is the difference between the system of linear that just have one linear inequality? So everything is the same except for the system of linear inequality is you're trying to find the shady area that overlap it. The overlapping shady area. That would be a solution. Okay, maybe I can give you another example, a real life example. So in here, a company produce a basic and premium version of its products. And the basic version requires 30 minutes of assembling and 50 minutes of painting. And the premium version requires 30 minutes assembling and 30 minutes painting. If the company has staff for 3,900 minutes of sampling and 3,300 minutes of painting each week, how much item can they produce within the limit of their staffing? So we have a similar example earlier in the video, right? But this one is we doesn't need to fully use the staffed the time. In this question, they just ask you, hey, what would be within the limit? So the way to set up the question would be the same. I'm going to use a black one and write, hey, a company, let's say, they have what? Premium version and the basic one. And then for the premium one, the basic one requires what? Assembling, and then they have painting. So for the basic one, the assembling requires what? 20 minutes. And then the painting requires 15 minutes. And then for the premium one, the assembling requires what? 30 minutes and 30 minutes. And what will be their total? So the total assembly time that they have is 3,900 and the total painting time is 13,300. So if we let there is going to produce X premium and the Y basic product, so what would be the total assembling time? So the total assembling time should be 13X plus 20Y. You want it to be within the limit, so that means it's less than or equals to 3,900. And then the total painting time should be what? 13X plus 15Y less than or equals to 13,300. Okay, so these two is going to be our system of linear inequality. So how do we do this one? It's going to be the same, right? So pause the video and try to do it by yourself. Okay, so again, this is real world questions. So when we're doing the real world, we need to consider the scenario that you can have a negative amount of time, right? So that means when we draw in the coordinate plane, we just want the first quadrant. So let's use a blue for the first one. If I pick 0 for X, Y equals to what? Y equals to 195. So if I pick Y equals to 0, S equals to what? 113. Oh, sorry. Okay, so now let's draw this line. 0 and 195 and 113. 0. Okay, I just enable everything on the coordinate plane. I have 0, 195, which is here. And then another point should be 130 and 0. Okay, now let's connect these two together. I got this line, solid one, because there's an equal sign in it. Okay, so for the second one, again, I use the same method. So I have what? If I let me use a yellow one. So if x equals to 0, y equals to 220, and if y equals to 0, x equals to 110. So now I'm going to draw these two. 2, 0, 210 here, and the 110, 0 here. All right, so what's the next step? The next step is we need to find their testing point. So I will use, hey, what would be the easier testing point? 0, 0, right? They can use the same testing points in 0, 0, they're all on their left side. So I use testing point 0, 0, I substitute 0, 0 into the first function. I have 13, let's say this is the first function. So I have 13 times 0 plus 20 times 0 less than or equal to 3900. I have 0 less than or equal to 3900. So, which is a true statement. So that means I'm going to choose the area containing the point 0, 0, which is here. Okay, now is the yellow one. So yellow, I'm still using the test point 0, 0. So I have 0 times 13 equals to 0, and then 15 times 0 gives you 0, which is less than 13,300, which means this is 0 less than 13,300, which is a true statement. So if it's a true statement, that means we need to choose what? The area that containing the point 0, 0. So it would be this area. So okay. So now which part they're overlapping? Again, you can choose anything that after besides the first quadrant. So it should be, I'm going to use a green one because blue overlapping yellow is green, right? So would be this part. So this is going to be our area that we are looking for. So be careful when you join it because there's some part which is, I'm going to use a wet pen. In here, this is not the overlap. In here, this is not the overlap part, right? Because they only have the yellow shaded area. They don't have the blue shaded area. Also, in the bottom here, is not included overlap part because they only have the blue one. You need to be careful. Also, another thing is, since this is what? A real life problem, you can have a negative minute. So that means everything has to be greater than or greater than 0, greater than or equal to 0. So what does that mean? Remember, y represent what? The basic product, and then x represent the premiums product. So that means I pick a random point in here, which is x equals to 0, y equals to 40. So that means if we produce 0 premiums product or 40 basic product, is still within the limit of staffing. Okay, so very interesting. That's it for today. Let me know if you have other questions.